Thunder rumbled outside as rain pelted against the bedroom windows of the Westchester County mansion. Sarah Mitchell stood in her kitchen, watching her coffee grow cold while morning light struggled through the storm clouds. At 52, she moved with the careful grace of a woman 8 months pregnant, one hand instinctively protecting her growing belly. "Sarah, honey, I'll be back late tonight. Another board meeting." The sound of car keys jingling punctuated her husband's words. "Drive safe. Richard, I love you." The door slammed, followed by the sound of his BMW starting in the circular driveway. Sarah remained at the kitchen island, surrounded by the quiet luxury of their home. The coffee maker gurgled softly. Classical music played from hidden speakers, and rain intensified against the floor-to-ceiling windows. 23 years of marriage had taught her Richard's rhythms. The real estate mogul worth $30 million was methodical, predictable, safe. These qualities had attracted her when they met at a charity gala in Manhattan. He represented stability after her chaotic childhood, with an alcoholic father and absent mother. Sarah hummed softly while organizing the business papers Richard had forgotten on the counter. Contracts, financial statements, hotel receipts. Her nurturing nature showed in these small acts of service, keeping his world organized while he built their empire. But something felt different lately. Richard's new cologne lingered in the air, expensive and unfamiliar. His phone calls had become whispered conversations behind closed doors. Weekend business trips to nearby cities seemed more frequent, yet his local meetings appeared to be decreasing. As she gathered the scattered papers, a hotel room keycard fell from between the documents. The Grand Plaza Hotel. Sarah's heart rate quickened as recognition washed over her. The same hotel where they had honeymooned 23 years ago. The same hotel where Richard had promised to love and cherish her forever. Why would he need a hotel room 30 minutes from home? Sarah held the keycard up to the light, as if examining it more closely might reveal an innocent explanation. Business meetings happened in hotels all the time. Client dinners, conference rooms. Her rational mind provided reasonable explanations, but her intuition whispered warnings she did not want to hear. She thought about the past few months of their marriage. Richard's excitement when they discovered the unexpected pregnancy had seemed genuine. His gentle hands on her growing belly, his promises about being a better father this time around. Their daughter Jessica was grown and married, living in California with her own family. This baby represented a second chance for both of them. But the late nights had increased since her second trimester began. The mysterious phone calls, the new attention to his appearance. Richard had always been well-groomed, but lately he seemed to spend more time in front of the mirror, trying on different shirts, asking her opinion about cologne. Sarah placed the keycard on the granite countertop and stared at it. The Grand Plaza Hotel, room 407. The numbers were printed in gold foil against the black plastic. Her phone buzzed with a text message from her best friend Melissa. "Coffee later, need girlfriend time before this baby arrives, and you disappear into mommy mode for the next 18 years? Sarah smiled despite her growing unease. Melissa had been her anchor through every major life event since college. Her rapid-fire speech and blunt honesty provided the perfect counterbalance to Sarah's more measured approach to life. She typed back, "Yes, need to talk. Something strange happened this morning." The rain continued to pound against the windows as Sarah moved through her morning routine. Prenatal vitamins with orange juice. Light stretching exercises recommended by her doctor. Checking items off her baby preparation list. The nursery was nearly complete, painted in soft yellow with white furniture and carefully chosen decorations. Richard had been genuinely excited about preparing the space. He had assembled the crib himself, insisting he wanted to build something with his own hands for their child. He had hung the mobile, positioned the rocking chair near the window, and spent hours discussing names while they folded tiny clothes together. How could the man who created that sacred space be hiding hotel room keycards in his briefcase? Sarah tried to push the thought away, but it lingered like the storm clouds outside. 23 years of marriage had taught her to trust her instincts, even when they led to uncomfortable questions, especially when they led to uncomfortable questions. The clock on the mantelpiece chimed 10 times. Richard would not return until late evening, giving her the entire day to investigate or worry herself into premature labor. Neither option appealed to her, but doing nothing felt impossible. She picked up the keycard again, turning it over in her hands. The hotel's phone number was printed on the back in small text. She could call and ask about the room. She could drive to the hotel and see if Richard's car was in the parking lot. She could confront him directly when he returned home. Or she could trust the man she had loved for more than 2 decades and assume there was an innocent explanation. Sarah placed the keycard in her purse and headed upstairs to get dressed for her coffee date with Melissa. Some conversations required the safety of public spaces and the support of loyal friends. This felt like one of those conversations. As she climbed the stairs, her phone rang. Richard's name appeared on the screen, along with a photo of him smiling at their anniversary dinner last month. "Hi, sweetheart," she answered, keeping her voice light and normal. "Good morning. Beautiful. How are you feeling today? How's our little miracle?" His voice was warm and loving, exactly as it had been for 23 years. No hint of deception or guilt, no change in tone or inflection. Either Richard was an exceptional actor, or Sarah was becoming paranoid from pregnancy hormones and too much time alone with her thoughts. "We're both fine. Just organizing your papers from last night. You left quite a pile on the counter." A brief pause. "Did I? Sorry about that. Must have been more tired than I thought. Anything important in there?" Sarah looked at her purse, where the keycard waited like evidence in a criminal case. "Just the usual business documents, hotel receipts, nothing that cannot wait until you get home." "Great. I should be back by 9 tonight. Maybe we can look at cribs online again. I want to make sure we have everything perfect for the baby." The genuine excitement in his voice made Sarah's chest tighten. Either Richard was the most loving husband and expectant father in the world, or he was the most convincing liar she had ever encountered. "That sounds wonderful," she replied. "I love you, Richard. I love you too, Sarah. Both of you, more than you'll ever know." The call ended, leaving Sarah alone with her doubts in the storm outside. She dressed carefully for her coffee date, choosing maternity clothes that made her feel confident and strong. If she was about to have the most difficult conversation of her marriage, she wanted to look like a woman who could handle whatever truth she might discover. Before leaving the house, Sarah stood in the nursery doorway and placed both hands on her belly. The baby kicked gently, as if responding to her touch. "Whatever happens," she whispered, "I will protect you. I promise." The keycard felt heavy in her purse as she drove toward Manhattan through the storm. Every mile brought her closer to answers she might not want to hear. But 23 years of marriage had taught her one crucial lesson. The truth always revealed itself eventually. The only choice was whether to discover it actively or wait for it to destroy everything passively. Sarah chose action, even though it terrified her. 3 hours later, Sarah drove through Manhattan traffic toward the small cafe where she and Melissa met monthly. The storm had passed, leaving the city washed clean and gleaming under unexpected sunshine. She parked carefully, mindful of her growing belly and the slippery streets. Melissa was already waiting at their usual corner table, her short, dark hair perfectly styled despite the early hour. At 49, she remained as energetic and direct as she had been in college. Though her successful marketing career had added polish to her natural confidence, "Sarah, girl, you look like you have seen a ghost," Melissa said as Sarah approached the table. "What happened this morning?" Sarah settled into her chair and placed her purse on the table between them. The keycard felt like it was burning through the leather. "I found something in Richard's briefcase, a hotel room keycard." Melissa's eyebrows rose. "Okay, and rich guys have business meetings in hotels all the time. Conference rooms, client dinners, whatever. You know this. The Grand Plaza Hotel, Melissa, 30 minutes from our house. The same hotel where we honeymooned." "Oh." Melissa's expression shifted from casual dismissal to focused attention. "That is different. Did you ask him about it?" "He called this morning. I mentioned finding hotel receipts among his papers, and he paused, just for a second, but he paused." Their waitress approached, and Sarah ordered decaffeinated coffee while Melissa requested her usual espresso. The cafe buzzed with morning conversation, providing cover for their private discussion. "Sarah, honey, you worry too much sometimes. Maybe he is planning something special for when the baby arrives. Maybe he booked a suite for a baby moon weekend. Maybe he met a client there for dinner and forgot to mention it." Sarah wanted to believe her friend's rational explanations. She had built her entire adult life on trusting Richard's integrity and devotion. Questioning that foundation felt like questioning her own identity. "Tell me about the other changes you mentioned." Melissa continued. The phone calls, the late nights, all that. Sarah thought carefully before responding. He has always worked long hours, but lately the pattern is different. He used to call throughout the day, checking in, sharing funny stories from meetings. Now he disappears for hours without contact, then comes home with elaborate explanations about where he has been. Kanana, what kind of explanations? Detailed ones. Too detailed, like he rehearsed them. Last week he told me about a 3-hour lunch meeting with potential investors from Chicago. He described the restaurant, the food they ordered, even the conversation topics. But when I asked follow-up questions the next day, his answers did not match the original story. Melissa leaned forward, her marketing instincts engaged. People who lie often over-explain to sound more credible. It is actually a red flag in client presentations. What else? New cologne, expensive clothes I did not recognize. He has always been well-dressed, but lately he seems to be trying harder, and his phone behavior has changed completely. How so? He used to leave it charging in the kitchen overnight. Now he takes it to bed and keeps it face down on his nightstand. He used to answer calls in front of me. Now he steps outside or goes into his office and closes the door. Their coffee arrived, providing a momentary break in the conversation. Sarah added cream and sugar while organizing her thoughts. Speaking her concerns aloud made them feel more real and more frightening. Sarah, these could all be innocent explanations. Maybe he is planning a surprise for you. Maybe work stress is making him more private. Maybe he is worried about being a good father and overcompensating in other areas of his life. Maybe, Sarah agreed. But my instincts are telling me something else. And after 23 years of marriage, I trust my instincts. Melissa studied her friend's face carefully. What are you thinking about doing? I do not know yet. Confront him directly. Call the hotel, hire a private investigator. Whoa, slow down. You are 8 months pregnant with your husband's baby. This is not the time for dramatic confrontations or private investigators. Take a breath and think logically. Sarah appreciated Melissa's practical approach, but logic felt insufficient when her entire world might be crumbling. What would you do if you were in my situation? Honestly, I would probably do exactly what you are doing. Drive myself crazy with worry, analyze every conversation for hidden meanings, and eventually work up the courage to demand answers. They sat in comfortable silence for several minutes, watching pedestrians hurry past the cafe windows. Sarah thought about her life with Richard, searching for signs she might have missed or misinterpreted. Their courtship had been traditional and romantic. Richard had pursued her patiently, winning over her skeptical friends and her overprotective older sister. He had proposed on the anniversary of their first date, with a ring he had designed specifically for her. Their wedding had been elegant and intimate, surrounded by family and close friends. The early years of marriage had been blissful. Richard built his real estate empire while Sarah managed their home and raised Jessica. She had been content with traditional gender roles, finding fulfillment in supporting Richard's ambitions and creating a stable family environment. But perhaps that contentment had made her complacent. Perhaps she had stopped paying attention to changes in their relationship dynamics. Perhaps she had been so focused on being the perfect wife that she had forgotten to be a vigilant partner. Remember when Jessica was born? Sarah asked suddenly. Of course. You called me from the hospital at 3 in the morning, crying because you had never been so happy and terrified at the same time. Richard missed her first steps because of a business deal in Chicago. I told myself that providing for our family was more important than being present for every milestone. I convinced myself that his absence demonstrated love, not neglect. Melissa nodded. And now you are wondering if you were naive. I am wondering if I have been naive for 23 years. If I created a fantasy version of my marriage that allowed me to ignore obvious warning signs? Sarah, even if Richard is having an affair, that does not mean your entire marriage was a lie. People change. Circumstances change. Middle-aged men sometimes make stupid decisions that have nothing to do with their wives. The possibility of an affair hung between them like a physical presence. Neither woman had spoken the word directly, but both understood the implications of secret hotel rooms and changed behavior patterns. What if he is? Sarah asked quietly. What if my husband is having an affair while I am carrying his child? Then you deal with it. You make decisions based on what is best for you and the baby. You do not let anyone, including Richard, make you feel like you deserve betrayal or abandonment. Sarah's phone buzzed with a text message. Richard's name appeared on the screen, along with a photo of a beautiful wooden rocking chair. Found this antique rocker at an estate sale. Perfect for the nursery. Cannot wait to show you tonight. Love you both. The message was sweet, thoughtful, and exactly the kind of gesture that had characterized their relationship for 2 decades. Sarah showed the screen to Melissa, who read it with a puzzled expression. This is not the behavior of a man who is planning to leave his pregnant wife, Melissa observed. This is the behavior of a man who is excited about becoming a father. Unless he is overcompensating for guilt, unless buying baby furniture makes him feel better about betraying his family, or unless you are overthinking this entire situation because pregnancy hormones are making you paranoid. Sarah wanted to believe her friend's assessment, but the keycard in her purse felt like concrete evidence of deception. Hotel rooms required explanations, especially hotel rooms at romantic locations 30 minutes from home. I need to know the truth, Sarah said finally. For my own peace of mind and for this baby's future, I cannot raise a child while wondering if my marriage is built on lies. Okay, Melissa agreed, but promise me you will be careful. Promise me you will not do anything dangerous or impulsive. Promise me you will think about the baby first. I promise. Sarah finished her coffee and gathered her purse. But I also promise myself that I will not ignore my instincts anymore. If something is wrong, I need to know. If nothing is wrong, I need proof. They hugged goodbye outside the cafe, and Sarah drove home through the sunny afternoon. The storm had passed, but another one might be brewing. This time, it would not be a weather system she could wait out safely indoors. This time, the storm might be coming from inside her own home. That evening, Richard returned with the antique rocking chair and infectious enthusiasm about the nursery. His excitement seemed genuine, his affection unchanged, his attention focused entirely on Sarah and their unborn child. But the keycard remained in her purse, a small piece of plastic that might hold the power to destroy everything she had spent 23 years building. Every woman who has ever loved someone knows that moment when your heart wants to believe, but your mind starts keeping score. Sarah had reached that moment, and she could not go back to innocent trust, no matter how much she wanted to. That evening, as Sarah prepared dinner in their spacious kitchen, she watched Richard through new eyes. He moved through their home with the casual familiarity of 2 decades, hanging his suit jacket in the hall closet, loosening his tie, checking the mail while humming unconsciously. Everything appeared normal, yet Sarah found herself cataloging details she had previously overlooked. The way he immediately checked his phone when he thought she was not watching, the slightly longer shower he took before dinner, the careful way he placed his phone face down on the dining room table during their meal. "How was your day, sweetheart?" Richard asked as they sat down to dinner. His voice carried the same warmth it always had, but Sarah listened for undertones of deception or guilt. "Quiet. I had coffee with Melissa, then spent the afternoon working on the nursery. The rocking chair looks perfect in there. I knew you would love it. The woman at the estate sale said it belonged to a family for 3 generations. Apparently, 7 babies were rocked to sleep in that chair." Richard's enthusiasm about the nursery had been consistent throughout her pregnancy. He spent hours discussing color schemes, furniture arrangements, and baby equipment with the same attention to detail he applied to his business deals. "Speaking of business," Sarah said carefully, "how did your board meeting go today?" A brief hesitation, so brief that she might have imagined it. "Long but productive. We are considering a new development project in Westchester. Could be very lucrative if we can navigate the zoning requirements." Sarah nodded and took another bite of her pasta, though her appetite had disappeared. Richard's explanation sounded rehearsed, just like the elaborate stories Melissa had described. Too much detail, too confidently delivered. "Will the project require a lot of travel?" she asked. "Some meetings with local officials, site visits, that sort of thing. Nothing too demanding, especially with the baby coming." Richard's phone buzzed against the table. He glanced at the screen, and Sarah caught a flicker of something in his expression. Anxiety, excitement, guilt. The emotion passed too quickly to identify. "Excuse me for just a moment," he said, picking up the phone. "Work emergency." He stepped into his office and closed the door, leaving Sarah alone with her suspicions and a half-eaten dinner. She could hear his muffled voice through the door, but not his words. The conversation lasted 15 minutes, during which Richard's tone varied from businesslike to what sounded almost intimate. When he returned to the dining room, his demeanor had changed subtly. He seemed distracted, checking his phone more frequently and responding to Sarah's conversation with less focus than usual. "Everything okay with work?" she asked. "Yes, just some complications with a potential investor. Nothing that cannot be resolved." After dinner, Richard suggested they watch a movie together in their home theater. Sarah agreed, hoping the familiar routine might ease her growing anxiety. They settled onto their comfortable leather sofa. Sarah curled against Richard's side while he absently stroked her hair. But even this intimate moment felt different. Richard's attention seemed divided. His responses to the movie delayed, his phone lighting up periodically with notifications he tried to check without Sarah noticing. During a particularly quiet scene, Sarah heard Richard's phone vibrate with a text message. The preview appeared briefly on the lock screen before he could grab it. "Missing you already? Tonight was magical. Wayne." Sarah's heart stopped. She kept her eyes on the television screen, trying to process what she had just seen while maintaining the appearance of normalcy. Richard quickly turned his phone face down. But the damage was done. Tonight was magical. The message implied an intimate evening, not a business meeting, and it was signed with a single initial V. Sarah's mind raced through possibilities. Victoria Valerie Vanessa. The name mattered less than the obvious implication. Richard had spent the evening with another woman, and that woman felt comfortable sending romantic messages to Sarah's husband. "I think I will go to bed early," Sarah said, keeping her voice steady despite the turmoil in her chest. "The baby is making me extra tired tonight." "Of course, sweetheart. I will be up in a few minutes. Just want to finish this email." Sarah kissed Richard goodnight, marveling at her ability to maintain normal behavior while her world crumbled around her. She climbed the stairs slowly, one hand on the railing for support and the other protectively covering her belly. In their master bedroom, Sarah sat on the edge of the bed and tried to think rationally. The text message could have an innocent explanation. Richard knew many women through his business dealings. Perhaps the message referred to a successful business dinner or productive meeting? But the wording felt personal, intimate, romantic. "Missing you already" suggested recent physical separation from someone Richard spent significant time with. "Tonight was magical" implied an emotional or romantic connection that went far beyond professional relationships. Sarah thought about the hotel keycard in her purse downstairs, the Grand Plaza Hotel, where she and Richard had honeymooned 23 years ago, where they had promised to love and cherish each other forever, where another woman apparently thought she had spent a magical evening with Sarah's husband. 23 years of marriage teaches you someone's rhythms, and Richard's were all wrong. The late showers, the secretive phone calls, the elaborate explanations for simple questions, the new cologne that lingered in their bedroom long after he left for work. Sarah changed into her nightgown and brushed her teeth mechanically, her mind spinning through the implications of what she had discovered. If Richard was having an affair, how long had it been going on? Was this his first betrayal? Or had there been others she had missed, most importantly? What did this mean for their unborn child and their future together when Richard finally came upstairs? Sarah pretended to be asleep. She listened to him move through their bathroom routine, noting that he spent more time than usual checking his phone. His shower ran longer than normal, and she could hear him humming softly, a habit that usually indicated good mood or excitement. Sarah lay still as Richard slipped into bed beside her, his familiar weight causing the mattress to dip slightly. He settled into his usual position, but instead of immediately falling asleep, she could sense his wakefulness in the darkness. After several minutes, she heard him pick up his phone from the nightstand. The soft glow of the screen illuminated his face as he typed what appeared to be a lengthy message. Sarah watched through barely opened eyes as Richard composed and deleted several versions of whatever he was writing. Finally, he sent the message and placed his phone back on the nightstand. Within moments, Sarah heard the soft buzz of a reply. Richard read it quickly, then deleted both messages from his phone before settling back into his pillow. The care he took to erase the conversation confirmed Sarah's worst fears. Innocent business communications did not require such secrecy. Devoted husbands did not need to hide their correspondence from their pregnant wives. Sarah remained motionless until Richard's breathing settled into the deep rhythm of sleep. Only then did she allow herself to cry silently into her pillow, tears of betrayal and heartbreak that she muffled to avoid waking the man who had promised to love and protect her forever. She thought about their baby, growing peacefully inside her while Sarah's world collapsed around them both. This child deserved better than parents whose marriage was built on lies and deception. This child deserved a father who was present and faithful, not distracted by secret relationships in romantic hotel rooms. Sarah placed both hands on her belly and made a silent promise to her unborn daughter or son. She would discover the truth about Richard's behavior, no matter how painful that truth might be. She would make decisions based on facts, not fear or wishful thinking, and she would protect this baby from the consequences of adult betrayal and selfishness, even if that meant protecting the child from its own father. The next morning would bring new challenges and difficult decisions, but for now, Sarah lay in the darkness beside her husband and tried to remember what it felt like to trust the man sleeping next to her. That feeling seemed like something from another lifetime, before hotel keycards and mysterious text messages had shattered her faith in the life they had built together. The next morning, after Richard left for another mysterious meeting, Sarah sat in her kitchen staring at her phone. The hotel keycard lay on the granite countertop beside her coffee cup, a small piece of plastic that had become the center of her universe. She had spent the sleepless hours after midnight planning her next steps. Confronting Richard directly felt premature without more evidence, but doing nothing while her marriage potentially crumbled around her felt impossible. Sarah picked up her phone and dialed Richard's office number. Janet, his longtime secretary, answered on the second ring with her usual professional cheerfulness. Mitchell Development. This is Janet speaking. Hi, Janet. This is Sarah Mitchell. I hope I am not bothering you. Mrs. Mitchell. Never a bother. How are you feeling? When is that baby due? 6 weeks to go, and I am feeling well. Thank you. I was wondering if you could help me with something. Richard mentioned having several important meetings yesterday, but I forgot to ask him about the details. Was he in the office much? A pause. Sarah could hear papers rustling in the background. Yesterday, Mrs. Mitchell. Mr. Mitchell told me he would be working from home with you all day. He canceled his Tuesday afternoon appointments and rescheduled his Wednesday morning conference call. The phone seemed to slip in Sarah's hand. Working from home. Are you certain? Absolutely. He specifically said he wanted to spend time helping you prepare for the baby. Is everything all right? Sarah's breathing became audible as she struggled to process this information. Richard had lied directly to her face, not once, but multiple times. He had created an elaborate fiction about board meetings and business obligations while actually spending the day somewhere else entirely. Everything is fine, Janet. I must have misunderstood. Thank you for your help. Sarah ended the call and sat staring at her phone screen. The evidence was becoming undeniable. Richard had lied about his whereabouts, received romantic text messages from someone identified only as V, and possessed a hotel room keycard he had not mentioned to his wife. Her phone rang, startling her from her thoughts. Melissa's name appeared on the screen. Sarah, honey, I have been thinking about our conversation yesterday. How are you feeling today? Worse, Sarah admitted. Much worse. I just called Richard's office to confirm his meetings yesterday, and Janet told me he canceled everything to work from home with me. But he was gone all day. Oh, Sarah, I am so sorry. What are you going to do? I need to know the truth. Mel, for my own sanity and for this baby's future, I cannot live in this uncertainty anymore. What do you need from me? Sarah appreciated her friend's immediate support without judgment or false reassurance. Do you know any private investigators? Someone discreet and professional? Actually, yes. My divorce attorney recommended someone when I was going through my own nightmare with David, Detective Martinez. He specializes in these kinds of situations, and he is completely confidential. Can you give me his number? Sarah, are you sure about this? Once you open that door, you cannot close it again. Once you know the truth, whatever it is, your marriage will never be the same. My marriage is already not the same, Sarah replied. I just need to understand what it has become. Melissa gave her the phone number, and Sarah called immediately before she could change her mind. Detective Martinez answered with a gravelly voice that somehow conveyed both professionalism and compassion. Mrs. Mitchell, Melissa gave me a brief overview of your situation. I handle these cases every day, and I understand how difficult this decision must be for you. How long does it usually take to get answers? In most cases, 48 to 72 hours. Are you prepared for what we might find? Sarah thought about her unborn child, her 23 years of marriage, and the life she had built on assumptions that might be completely false. Detective Martinez, I am 8 months pregnant, and my husband is lying to me about where he spends his days. I am prepared for anything that helps me understand my situation. I will need some basic information. Your husband's full name, vehicle description, typical schedule, and any specific concerns or evidence you have already discovered. Sarah provided the requested details, including the hotel keycard and the mysterious text message. Detective Martinez listened without judgment, asking clarifying questions that demonstrated his experience with similar cases. Mrs. Mitchell, based on what you have told me, I should have preliminary information within 48 hours. I will call you as soon as I have something concrete to report. After ending the call, Sarah sat in her empty house and tried to process what she had just done. She had hired a private investigator to spy on her husband. The woman who had spent 23 years being the perfect supportive wife had just taken the first step toward potentially destroying her marriage. But the alternative, living in uncertainty while raising a child with a man she could no longer trust, felt worse than knowing the truth, no matter how painful that truth might be. Sarah spent the rest of the day trying to maintain normal routines while her mind raced with possibilities. She folded baby clothes, organized the nursery, and prepared dinner with mechanical precision. When Richard called to check on her, she managed to sound normal and loving despite the investigation she had set in motion. "How was your day, sweetheart?" he asked. "Quiet and restful. I spent some time in the nursery and had a nice conversation with Melissa. How were your meetings?" "Productive but exhausting. I should be home by 7 for dinner." "I will see you then. I love you." Richard, "I love you too." Sarah, "Both of you." The conversation felt like a performance, with both of them playing roles they had perfected over 2 decades. But Sarah now suspected that Richard's performance might be hiding something much darker than she had ever imagined. That evening, Richard arrived home with flowers and apologies for being late. His behavior seemed normal, even loving, but Sarah found herself analyzing every word and gesture for signs of deception. During dinner, she mentioned her phone call to his office. "I called Janet today to ask about scheduling your birthing class reminder on your calendar, and she mentioned you had cleared your schedule yesterday to work from home. That was so sweet of you, even though you ended up having to leave for meetings anyway." Richard's fork paused halfway to his mouth for just a moment before he continued eating. "Did she? I guess I forgot to mention that the meetings came up last minute, emergency situations that could not wait." Another lie, delivered smoothly and without apparent guilt. Sarah nodded and smiled as if she believed him completely. Of course, business emergencies always seem to happen at the worst times. After dinner, they watched television together, but Sarah's attention was focused on Richard's behavior rather than the program. He checked his phone frequently, always tilting the screen away from her view. When it buzzed with notifications, he immediately silenced it without reading the messages. Around 10 o'clock, Richard excused himself to take a business call in his office. Sarah could hear his voice through the closed door, but the tone sounded more personal than professional. The conversation lasted nearly 30 minutes, during which Richard's voice ranged from businesslike to what sounded almost tender. When he returned to the living room, Richard seemed distracted and slightly agitated. "Everything okay?" Sarah asked. "Just some complications with the Westchester project. Nothing that cannot be resolved with a few strategic meetings." "Will that require more travel?" "Possibly. I might need to be out of the office more frequently over the next few weeks." Sarah nodded as if this explanation made perfect sense, while mentally noting that Richard was already laying the groundwork for more absences. More opportunities for mysterious meetings and romantic hotel room encounters. That night, as they prepared for bed, Sarah watched Richard's nighttime routine with new awareness. He spent extra time in the bathroom, emerged wearing cologne, and placed his phone on his nightstand with the screen facing down. When they settled into bed, Richard reached for Sarah with familiar affection, but she found herself unable to respond naturally to his touch. How could she be intimate with a man who might be betraying their marriage? How could she trust his whispered endearments when he was likely whispering similar words to another woman? "Are you feeling all right?" Richard asked, sensing her withdrawal. "Just tired. The baby is active tonight." Richard placed his hand on Sarah's belly and smiled when he felt the baby kick. "Our little fighter. I cannot wait to meet this child." The genuine love in his voice confused Sarah more than outright coldness would have. How could Richard be an adoring, expectant father and a cheating husband simultaneously? How could he compartmentalize his life so effectively that betrayal and devotion coexisted without apparent conflict? Sarah fell asleep wondering if she would ever understand the man she had married, or if 23 years of marriage had been built on an illusion she was only now beginning to see through. Tomorrow would bring more answers from Detective Martinez. Tomorrow would move her closer to the truth she both needed and dreaded to discover. 48 hours felt like 48 years. Sarah moved through her daily routines mechanically, her mind constantly focused on Detective Martinez and what he might be discovering about her husband's secret life. She attended her prenatal yoga class, met with her obstetrician, and prepared for the baby's arrival, all while anxiety gnawed at her like a physical ache. Thursday morning brought her weekly prenatal appointment with Dr. Patricia Chen, who had been her physician for 15 years. Dr. Chen's calm professionalism and gentle manner had guided Sarah through her pregnancy with Jessica, and now this unexpected late-in-life baby. "Everything looks perfect. Sarah," Dr. Chen said as she reviewed the ultrasound images. "Baby's heart rate is strong, growth is exactly on track, and your blood pressure is good despite the stress you mentioned feeling lately." "About that stress," Sarah began carefully, "how much can emotional turmoil affect the baby?" Dr. Chen set down her clipboard and studied Sarah's face with the attention of someone who had counseled thousands of women through pregnancy complications. "Moderate stress is normal during pregnancy and usually does not harm the baby. But chronic severe stress can sometimes lead to complications. What kind of emotional turmoil are you experiencing?" Sarah considered how much to reveal. Dr. Chen was bound by patient confidentiality, but discussing her marital problems with Richard's golf partner's wife felt risky. Marriage stress, nothing dangerous, just uncertainty about some major life decisions. "Are you sleeping well? Eating regularly? Feeling supported by your husband and family?" "Sleeping has been difficult lately. My mind races at night, and I am not sure how much support I can count on from Richard right now." Dr. Chen made notes in Sarah's chart while speaking in her characteristic calm tone. "Sarah, you are 36 weeks pregnant. This baby could arrive at any time over the next 6 weeks. It is crucial that you minimize stress and maximize support during this period." "I understand. I am trying to resolve the issues that are causing stress." "Good. And Sarah, if you need professional counseling or support services, I can provide referrals. Many women find individual therapy helpful during major life transitions." Sarah nodded, though she suspected that therapy would not solve the problem of a potentially unfaithful husband. Only truth could address that issue, and truth was what Detective Martinez was hopefully uncovering. After her appointment, Sarah drove to her prenatal yoga class at an upscale studio in Manhattan. The weekly class had become a sanctuary of calm during her pregnancy, providing both physical relief and connection with other expectant mothers. But today, as Sarah changed into her yoga clothes in the locker room, she overheard a conversation that shattered any remaining hope for innocent explanations. "Did you see Richard Mitchell at the Grand Plaza yesterday?" One woman asked another. "He was all over some young brunette in the hotel lobby." Sarah's blood turned to ice. She stood frozen behind the row of lockers, listening to the conversation while her world collapsed around her. "The real estate guy, but his wife is pregnant," the second woman replied. "I know, it made me sick. They were practically eating each other's faces right there in the lobby. Some people have no shame." "How awful for his wife. She seems like such a nice woman." "She is. I met her at a charity luncheon last month. She was glowing and talking about how excited her husband was about their new baby." Sarah's water bottle slipped from her hands and clattered against the floor. Both women looked in her direction, but she ducked behind the lockers before they could see her face. Her breathing became ragged as she processed what she had just heard. Richard had been seen with another woman at the Grand Plaza Hotel, the same hotel where the mysterious keycard had come from. They had been displaying public affection in the lobby, showing no concern for Richard's reputation or marriage. Sarah's phone buzzed with a text from Melissa. "How are you holding up thinking about you?" Sarah typed back with shaking hands. "Emergency. Can you pick me up at yoga studio? I cannot drive right now." "On my way. Be there in 15 minutes. Sarah skipped the yoga class and waited in the parking lot, her mind spinning with the implications of what she had overheard. Random women at her yoga studio had witnessed Richard's affair before his own wife had confirmed it. The betrayal was public knowledge while Sarah had been living in ignorant bliss. When Melissa arrived, Sarah collapsed into the passenger seat and recounted the overheard conversation. Melissa listened with growing anger and concern. "Sarah, honey, I am so sorry. I know how much you wanted this to be a misunderstanding." 6 months, Sarah said numbly. Detective Martinez said Richard has been seeing her for 6 months, our entire pregnancy. While I was growing our baby, he was building a relationship with another woman. What did Detective Martinez find out? He called this morning with preliminary information. Richard has been meeting Victoria Sterling twice a week at the Grand Plaza Hotel. She is 28 years old and works at Harrison Marketing. They have been seen together at restaurants, shopping, and apparently making out in hotel lobbies. Sarah's voice broke as she continued. Detective Martinez has photographs. Melissa, photographs of my husband kissing another woman while I am 8 months pregnant with his child. Melissa pulled into a coffee shop parking lot and turned off the engine. She reached over and took Sarah's hands, which were shaking uncontrollably. What do you want to do? I want to disappear. I want to rewind 6 months and pay more attention to the warning signs. I want to protect this baby from growing up in a broken home. Sarah, look at me. You did nothing wrong. Richard made these choices. Richard created this situation. You are not responsible for his betrayal. But I enabled it by being naive. I should have questioned the late nights and mysterious phone calls. I should have trusted my instincts instead of making excuses for him. Stop blaming yourself. You trusted your husband because trust is what marriage requires. Richard violated that trust. Not you. Sarah's phone rang. Detective Martinez's name appeared on the screen. Mrs. Mitchell, I have the photographs and documentation you requested. When would you like to meet to review the evidence? As soon as possible. Today, if you can arrange it. I can meet you at my office in 1 hour. Mrs. Mitchell, I want to prepare you for what you are about to see. The evidence is conclusive and graphic. Your husband's relationship with Miss Sterling appears to be both romantic and sexual. Sarah closed her eyes and tried to breathe steadily. I understand. I need to see everything. After ending the call, Sarah looked at Melissa with a mixture of determination and devastation. I am about to see photographs of my husband with his mistress. After that, there will be no going back to pretending everything is normal. Are you ready for that? Sarah thought about her unborn child, her 23 years of marriage, and the lies she had been living with for months without realizing it. I have to be ready. This baby deserves a mother who faces reality instead of hiding from it. And I deserve to know the truth about my own life. As they drove toward Detective Martinez's office, Sarah reflected on a conversation she had had with her mother years ago. Her mother had said that every woman reaches a moment when she chooses between the life she planned and the life that is calling her. Sarah had not understood what her mother meant at the time. Now, 36 weeks pregnant and driving toward evidence of her husband's infidelity, Sarah finally understood. The life she had planned was built on trust, fidelity, and shared commitment to family. The life that was calling her involved single motherhood, divorce proceedings, and starting over at 52 years old. She remembered every woman she had ever known who said they never saw it coming. Now she understood that you do see it coming. You just refuse to believe your eyes until the evidence becomes too overwhelming to deny. Sarah was about to cross that line, and she knew her life would never be the same. Detective Martinez's office occupied the 3rd floor of a nondescript building in Midtown Manhattan. Sarah and Melissa rode the elevator in silence, both women understanding that the next hour would fundamentally change Sarah's life forever. Detective Martinez was a compact man in his 50s with kind eyes and the bearing of someone who had delivered difficult news many times before. His office was spartanly furnished but professional, with certificates and commendations covering one wall. "Mrs. Mitchell, please have a seat. I want to review my findings with you before showing you the photographic evidence." Sarah settled into a leather chair while Melissa took the seat beside her for moral support. Detective Martinez opened a thick manila folder and reviewed his notes. "Your husband, Richard Mitchell, has been conducting an affair with Victoria Sterling for approximately 6 months. Ms. Sterling is 28 years old, single, and works as an account executive at Harrison Marketing. They meet regularly at the Grand Plaza Hotel, usually on Tuesday and Thursday afternoons." Sarah's hands instinctively moved to protect her belly as she processed this information. Tuesday and Thursday afternoons. Those are the days Richard claims to have board meetings. "Ms. Sterling believes your husband is separated from you and planning to file for divorce after the baby is born. He has told her that you are staying together only until the child arrives, at which point he intends to pursue a relationship with her exclusively." The betrayal cut deeper than Sarah had expected. Richard was not only cheating on her, but planning their divorce while she prepared for their child's birth. He was building a future with another woman while allowing Sarah to believe they were building one together. "What else do I need to know?" Detective Martinez hesitated. "Mr. Mitchell has been financially supporting Ms. Sterling. He pays the rent on her downtown apartment and has given her expensive jewelry and clothing. He opened a joint credit card account with her name on it." "How much money has he spent on her?" "Approximately $40,000 over the past 6 months." Sarah felt physically sick. While she had been carefully budgeting for baby expenses and planning their child's future, Richard had been spending their money on his mistress. The financial betrayal felt almost as devastating as the emotional one. "Mrs. Mitchell," Detective Martinez continued gently, "I have photographs that document their relationship. Are you prepared to see them?" Sarah looked at Melissa, who squeezed her hand encouragingly. "Show me everything." Detective Martinez spread a series of photographs across his desk. The first showed Richard and Victoria entering the Grand Plaza Hotel together. Richard's hand on the small of Victoria's back in an intimate gesture. Victoria was indeed young and beautiful, with dark hair and the kind of polished appearance that money could buy. The second photograph showed them at a restaurant, leaning across the table toward each other with obvious romantic chemistry. Richard was smiling in a way Sarah had not seen in years, looking relaxed and happy in a manner that suggested genuine emotional connection. The third photograph captured them kissing passionately in the hotel lobby, Victoria's arms wrapped around Richard's neck while he held her against him. The intimacy was unmistakable and devastating. "There are more," Detective Martinez said quietly, "including photographs of them entering and leaving the hotel room together on multiple occasions." Sarah studied the images while trying to reconcile them with the man who had assembled a crib for their baby and discussed names late into the night. How could Richard compartmentalize his life so completely that he could be a devoted father-to-be in the evening and passionate lover to another woman in the afternoon? "What do you recommend I do with this information?" Sarah asked. "That depends on your goals, Mrs. Mitchell. If you want to save your marriage, confronting your husband with evidence might motivate him to end the affair. If you want to protect yourself financially and legally, you should consult with a divorce attorney before taking any action." Melissa spoke up for the first time. "Sarah, you need to call Catherine Walsh. She is the best divorce attorney in the city, and she specializes in high-asset cases involving infidelity." Sarah nodded while continuing to study the photographs. The woman in the pictures looked confident and sophisticated, clearly comfortable with Richard's wealth and attention. She was everything Sarah had been 23 years ago: young, beautiful, and naive enough to believe in forever. "Detective Martinez, is there anything else I should know? Ms. Sterling appears to be genuinely in love with your husband. Based on my observations, she believes they have a future together. This is not a casual affair. Mrs. Mitchell, your husband has created an alternate life with this woman." The words hit Sarah like physical blows. Richard had not simply strayed from their marriage. He had built an entirely separate relationship, complete with emotional intimacy, financial support, and future planning. Sarah was not competing with a momentary lapse in judgment, but with a fully realized romance. "Thank you for your thoroughness," Sarah said, gathering the photographs into a neat stack. How much do I owe you for your services? My retainer covers the initial investigation. If you need ongoing surveillance or additional documentation, we can discuss that separately. Sarah and Melissa left the detective's office with copies of all evidence and a clear understanding of Richard's double life. In the elevator, Melissa put her arm around Sarah's shoulders. How are you holding up? I feel like I have been living someone else's life for 6 months. While I was planning our baby's nursery, Richard was planning his escape from our marriage. What are you going to do? I am going to call Catherine Walsh, and then I am going to confront Richard. Not with accusations or emotional drama, but with facts and legal representation. Are you sure you want to confront him while you are this pregnant? The stress could trigger early labor? Sarah considered this concern seriously. At 36 weeks, her baby could arrive safely at any time, but the shock of confrontation might indeed trigger labor complications. I cannot live with this knowledge without addressing it. The stress of pretending everything is normal while knowing about Victoria would be worse than the stress of honest confrontation. They drove to Catherine Walsh's law office, where Sarah made an emergency appointment for the following morning. Catherine Walsh had a reputation for aggressive representation of women in high-asset divorce cases, particularly when adultery was involved. That evening, Sarah returned home to find Richard arranging flowers in a crystal vase, flowers he had presumably bought after spending the afternoon with Victoria. The hypocrisy was almost comical. "How was your day, sweetheart?" Richard asked, kissing Sarah on the cheek with lips that had been kissing another woman hours earlier. "Enlightening," Sarah replied. "I learned some interesting things about trust and marriage and financial responsibility." Richard paused in his flower arranging. "Oh, what kind of things?" "The importance of honesty between spouses, the value of shared commitment to family goals, the devastating impact of betrayal on pregnant women and unborn children." "Sarah, you are starting to worry me." "Are you feeling all right? Is the baby okay?" Sarah looked at her husband of 23 years and marveled at his ability to express concern for her well-being while simultaneously destroying her emotional foundation. "The baby is fine. Richard, I am not sure about us, though." "What do you mean?" "I mean that marriage requires trust, and trust requires honesty. And honesty seems to be in short supply in our relationship lately." Richard set down the flowers and studied Sarah's face carefully. "Has someone said something to upset you? Has Melissa been filling your head with paranoid nonsense again?" The casual dismissal of her concerns and the automatic blame of her best friend confirmed everything Sarah had discovered about Richard's character. He was not just unfaithful, he was manipulative and dishonest in ways that extended far beyond his sexual betrayal. "No one has said anything that was not already obvious to anyone paying attention," Sarah replied. "I just wish I had been paying attention sooner." That night, Sarah lay in bed beside Richard while he slept peacefully, apparently untroubled by guilt or anxiety about his double life. She placed her hands on her belly and made silent promises to her unborn child about the kind of life they would build together, with or without Richard's participation. Tomorrow would bring legal consultation and strategic planning. Tomorrow would begin the process of reclaiming her life from the lies that had defined it for 6 months. But tonight, Sarah grieved for the marriage she thought she had and the future she had believed they were building together. She mourned the loss of trust that could never be fully restored. Even if Richard ended his affair and begged for forgiveness, some betrayals change everything, and Sarah was beginning to understand that she was living through one of them. At exactly 7 p.m. the next evening, Sarah arrived at the Grand Plaza Hotel wearing her best maternity dress and the kind of confidence that comes from having legal representation and irrefutable evidence. Catherine Walsh had been everything Melissa had promised: sharp, experienced, and completely committed to protecting Sarah's interests in what was clearly going to be a complex divorce proceeding. The hotel lobby was elegant and intimate, with classical music playing softly while well-dressed guests moved through the marble-floored space. Sarah positioned herself near the bar where she could observe the elevator banks and main entrance without being immediately visible. She did not have to wait long. At 7:15, Richard emerged from the elevator with Victoria Sterling, his hand resting possessively on her lower back. Victoria looked exactly as she had in the photographs: young, polished, and completely comfortable in Richard's luxurious world. They moved toward the hotel bar. Richard whispering something in Victoria's ear that made her laugh in a way that suggested genuine intimacy. Sarah watched them settle into a corner booth, noting how Richard immediately ordered Victoria's drink without asking her preference, a level of familiarity that spoke to months of shared experiences. Sarah approached their table directly, her heart pounding but her resolve absolute. The confrontation she had been dreading and planning was finally about to occur. Richard, the sound of glass clinking against the table marked the moment Richard's drink slipped from his hand. His face went white as he looked up at Sarah, clearly trying to process how his pregnant wife had appeared in the hotel where he was conducting his affair. Sarah, what are you? How did you? Victoria looked confused and slightly annoyed by the interruption. Who is this woman? Richard? Sarah felt a surge of calm clarity as she looked at the young woman who had been sharing her husband for 6 months. I am his wife, the mother of his unborn child, and you are. The conversations around them began to quiet as other hotel guests sensed drama unfolding. Richard's face flushed red as he realized their private affair was about to become a very public scene. Sarah, please, not here, Richard stammered. Let me explain. This is not what it looks like. Really? Sarah asked with surprising composure. Because it looks like you are having a romantic dinner with your mistress at the same hotel where we honeymooned 23 years ago. It looks like you are spending our money on another woman while I prepare for our child's birth. It looks like you have been lying to me for 6 months while building a relationship with someone else. Victoria's face had gone pale as she processed Sarah's words. You never told me she was pregnant. There are many things Richard has not told you, Sarah replied, addressing Victoria directly. Like the fact that he has no intention of leaving me for you. Like the fact that he tells me he loves me every single day, while he tells you the same thing every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon. The public nature of the confrontation was clearly devastating to Richard, who valued his reputation in Manhattan's elite social circles above almost everything else. Hotel guests were openly staring now, some recognizing Richard from business and social functions. Richard, Sarah continued, her voice growing stronger with each word, I want you to explain to Victoria why you bought hotel rooms while I bought baby clothes. I want you to explain how you promised to be a better father while betraying your family. I want you to explain how you spent $40,000 on your mistress while asking me to budget carefully for nursery expenses. Victoria stood up abruptly, her own anger now directed at Richard. You told me you were separated. You said you were only staying in the same house until after the baby was born. Victoria, please, Richard began, but she cut him off. You lied to both of us. Victoria's voice carried clearly through the hotel lobby. You told me your wife understood that your marriage was over. You never mentioned that she was still planning a future with you. Sarah felt an unexpected moment of sympathy for the younger woman, who was clearly as much a victim of Richard's deception as Sarah herself. Victoria, Sarah said more gently, Richard has been telling me that he loves me and cannot wait for our baby to arrive. He assembled the crib in our nursery and discusses baby names with me every night. Whatever he told you about our marriage was a lie designed to keep you available to him without demanding real commitment. Sakram. The humiliation on Richard's face was obvious as his carefully constructed double life collapsed in the most public way possible. Several people in the lobby had taken out their phones, clearly recording or photographing the scene. Sarah, Richard tried again. I made a mistake. I love you. I love our baby. Victoria means nothing to me. The cruel dismissal of Victoria's feelings demonstrated exactly the kind of man Richard had become. Sarah looked at him with a mixture of pity and disgust. Richard, you do not love me. You love the idea of me, the devoted wife who asks no questions and makes no demands, the woman who manages your home while you explore your options with younger women. That woman no longer exists. Sarah turned to Victoria, who was gathering her purse and preparing to leave. Victoria, honey, he will tell you I am crazy and vindictive. He will promise to leave me as soon as the baby arrives. He will say this confrontation proves our marriage is over anyway. Do not believe him. Men who lie to their wives will lie to their mistresses. Victoria paused at the table, looking between Richard and Sarah with an expression of complete disillusionment. You are right. I was young and stupid to believe him. I am sorry. Mrs. Mitchell, I truly did not know the whole truth. After Victoria left, Sarah and Richard stood alone in the hotel lobby, surrounded by curious onlookers and the ruins of their marriage. Richard's desperation was palpable as he realized the full scope of his losses. "Sarah, please, we can work through this. I will end things with Victoria immediately. I will do anything to save our marriage." "Richard, our marriage ended 6 months ago when you chose to build a life with another woman. I am just the last person to find out about it." Sarah walked away from the hotel lobby feeling stronger than she had in months. The confrontation she had dreaded had actually been empowering, forcing Richard to face the consequences of his choices in the most public and humiliating way possible. As she drove home, Sarah reflected on the evening's events. The public nature of the confrontation had been unplanned but perhaps necessary. Richard's reputation in their social circle was now damaged beyond repair, which would limit his ability to manipulate the narrative of their divorce. More importantly, Sarah had reclaimed her voice and her power. For 6 months, she had been an unknowing participant in Richard's deception. Now she was an active agent in determining her own future. The baby kicked strongly as Sarah pulled into their driveway, as if responding to her mother's newfound strength and determination. Whatever challenges lay ahead, Sarah and her child would face them together, free from the lies that had defined their lives for too long. Richard's car was not in the driveway when she arrived home, suggesting he had not yet worked up the courage to face her in private after their public confrontation. Sarah was grateful for the time alone to process what had just occurred and prepare for the next phase of what would undoubtedly be a difficult separation. But for the first time in months, Sarah felt like she was living her own life rather than a fiction created by someone else's selfish choices. The truth was painful, but it was finally, completely hers. The next morning brought lawyers, photographers, and consequences that rippled through Richard's carefully constructed world like stones thrown into still water. Sarah woke to find 17 missed calls on her phone, some from Richard, others from mutual friends who had heard about the hotel confrontation through Manhattan's surprisingly efficient social gossip network. Catherine Walsh called at 8 a.m. with updates that demonstrated her efficiency and strategic thinking. "Sarah, the hotel incident worked in our favor. Richard's public humiliation has motivated him to seek immediate damage control, which means he is more likely to negotiate fairly rather than drag this through the courts." "What kind of damage control?" "He called my office at 6 a.m. requesting an emergency meeting. His attorney wants to discuss settlement terms before any media attention develops." Apparently, several people at the hotel posted about the incident on social media. Sarah felt a grim satisfaction at Richard's panic. For 6 months, he had controlled the narrative of their relationship through lies and manipulation. Now the truth was public knowledge, and he was experiencing the consequences of his choices. "What should I expect from this meeting?" "Richard will try to minimize his behavior and maximize your culpability. He will claim the affair was a reaction to problems in your marriage. He will suggest that your confrontation proves you are unstable and vindictive. Do not let him manipulate you into accepting blame for his betrayal." An hour later, Richard arrived at their house with his attorney, James Sullivan, a smooth corporate lawyer who specialized in protecting wealthy men from the financial consequences of their personal failures. Richard looked haggard and desperate, clearly having slept poorly after his public humiliation. "Sarah," Richard began as soon as he entered their living room, "we need to talk about last night. That scene at the hotel was completely unnecessary. We could have worked through this privately." "Richard, there was nothing private about your affair. You made it public when you decided to conduct it in hotel lobbies and restaurants where our friends could witness it." James Sullivan intervened with the calculated tone of someone accustomed to managing crisis situations. "Mrs. Mitchell, my client acknowledges that mistakes were made, but public embarrassment serves no constructive purpose. We can work this out amicably without further damage to either party's reputation." Catherine Walsh had arrived minutes earlier and now spoke with the confidence of someone holding all the strongest cards. "Mr. Sullivan, your client created this situation through months of calculated deception and financial betrayal. We have photographs, hotel receipts, credit card statements, and witness testimony documenting his affair. The public embarrassment is a natural consequence of his choices." "What do you want?" Richard asked, directing his question to Sarah rather than the attorneys. Sarah looked at the man she had loved and trusted for 23 years, noting how different he appeared when stripped of his charm and manipulation. I want honesty, Richard. For the first time in 6 months, I want you to tell me the truth about what you were planning for our future. Richard's mask slipped, revealing the cold calculation that had apparently been driving his behavior. Fine. You want honesty? I was planning to wait until after the baby was born, then file for divorce. Victoria and I have been discussing marriage and starting a family together. The brutal honesty was actually easier to process than the months of lies had been. Sarah felt clarity rather than devastation as Richard finally revealed his true intentions. So while I was preparing for our child's birth, you were planning your exit from our marriage? I did not want to upset you during the pregnancy. I thought it would be better to wait until after the baby arrived to discuss our future. Catherine Walsh spoke with barely controlled anger. Mr. Mitchell, you were planning to abandon your pregnant wife while spending marital assets on your mistress? That demonstrates premeditated financial and emotional abuse. Richard's attorney tried to regain control of the conversation. Let us focus on practical solutions rather than emotional accusations. What are your terms for an amicable separation? Catherine Walsh spread a thick folder of documents across the coffee table. Mrs. Mitchell is entitled to 50% of all marital assets, including real estate holdings, business interests, and investment accounts. We are also seeking alimony and child support, plus compensation for emotional distress caused by adultery. That is ridiculous, Richard exploded. I built this business before we were married. Sarah contributed nothing to the commercial real estate deals that created our wealth. Actually, Catherine Walsh replied calmly, New York law recognizes marriage as an economic partnership. Sarah's contributions to your home, family, and social network enabled your business success. More importantly, your affair strengthens her claim to a significant settlement. James Sullivan reviewed the documentation Catherine had provided, his expression growing increasingly grim as he realized the strength of their evidence. This is financial blackmail, Richard said. You cannot take half of everything I worked to build because I made a personal mistake. Sarah spoke for the first time in several minutes, her voice steady and clear. Richard, you did not make a mistake. You made a series of calculated choices over 6 months. You chose to lie to me daily. You chose to spend our money on another woman. You chose to plan a future that did not include me while allowing me to believe we were building one together. Sarah, I love you. I was confused and going through a midlife crisis. Victoria meant nothing to me. If I meant nothing to him, why did you spend $40,000 on me? Victoria's voice came from the front hallway, where she had apparently been standing unannounced. Everyone turned to see Victoria Sterling entering the living room, her face flushed with anger and determination. She had clearly decided to confront Richard directly, rather than disappear quietly from his life. Victoria, what are you doing here? Richard asked, his voice betraying panic at this unexpected complication. I came to return these, Victoria said, placing a jewelry box on the coffee table, and to tell your wife the truth about our relationship, since you seem incapable of honesty. Victoria turned to Sarah with an expression of defiant guilt. Mrs. Mitchell, Richard told me he was separated from you and planning to file for divorce after your baby was born. He said you were staying together only for financial and legal convenience. He promised to marry me as soon as his divorce was finalized. Victoria, please, Richard began, but she continued without acknowledging him. He told me he had not been intimate with you for over a year. He said your pregnancy was unplanned and that you were using it to manipulate him into staying married. He made me believe that I was helping him escape an unhappy marriage. Sarah felt an unexpected surge of gratitude toward Victoria for providing this information. Richard's lies had been even more elaborate and cruel than she had realized. Victoria, Sarah said gently, Richard told me last week that he could not wait for our baby to arrive and that he had never been happier in our marriage. He told me he loved me every single day while apparently telling you the same thing. Victoria's anger shifted entirely toward Richard. You lied to both of us. You made me complicit in destroying a pregnant woman's marriage by telling me it was already over. Richard's desperation was now complete as both women confronted him simultaneously with the full scope of his deception. I was trying to protect everyone. I did not want to hurt either of you unnecessarily. You hurt us both extensively and unnecessarily, Sarah replied. You created a situation where two women who should have been allies became unknowing enemies while you benefited from both relationships. Catherine Walsh had been taking notes throughout this exchange, clearly recognizing the value of Victoria's testimony in strengthening Sarah's case. Ms. Sterling, Catherine said, would you be willing to provide a written statement about Mr. Mitchell's representations regarding his marriage? Absolutely, Mrs. Mitchell. I am truly sorry for my part in this situation. I thought I was in love with a man who was honestly planning to build a future with me. I realize now that I was just another woman he was manipulating for his own gratification. After Victoria left and the attorneys concluded their preliminary negotiations, Sarah found herself alone with Richard for the first time since the hotel confrontation. His facade of control had completely collapsed, revealing the selfish and manipulative man he had apparently always been. Sarah, he said quietly, I know I have made terrible mistakes, but we can work through this. Think about our baby. Think about the family we plan to build together. Sarah looked at Richard and felt nothing but pity for his inability to understand the magnitude of his betrayal. Richard, the family I planned to build was based on love, trust, and mutual commitment. You destroyed that foundation 6 months ago. I cannot rebuild it on lies and manipulation. What happens now? Now we get divorced, you pay appropriate support for your child, and you live with the consequences of your choices. I move forward with my life, and you figure out who you actually are when you are not lying to women who love you. That evening, as Sarah prepared for bed in the house she would soon be leaving, she reflected on the day's revelations. The legal battle would be complex and expensive, but it would also be fair. Richard's public humiliation had ensured that he could not control the narrative or manipulate the outcome. More importantly, Sarah had reclaimed her voice and her power. She was no longer a victim of Richard's deception, but an active agent in determining her own future and her child's well-being. The baby kicked strongly as Sarah settled into bed, as if responding to her mother's newfound strength and clarity. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, free from the lies that had defined their lives for too long. 3 weeks later, the settlement negotiations reached their conclusion in Catherine Walsh's downtown office. Sarah sat across from Richard and his attorney, her hands resting protectively on her belly, while legal documents that would reshape both their lives lay spread across the conference table. The intervening weeks had brought a cascade of consequences for Richard's choices. News of his affair had spread through Manhattan's elite social circles with the efficiency of a digital wildfire. 3 major business deals had fallen through when partners expressed concerns about Richard's character and judgment. His membership at the exclusive River Club had been quietly suspended after other members complained about his conduct. Most devastatingly for a man who prized his reputation above almost everything else. Richard had become the subject of gossip and speculation in every social setting where he had previously commanded respect. Sarah, Catherine Walsh announced with satisfaction, we have reached a comprehensive settlement that addresses all of your concerns and protects your financial future. She spread the final agreement across the table for Sarah's review. You will receive the Westchester house, 50% of all marital assets including business holdings and investment accounts, plus substantial alimony and child support. The total value exceeds $12 million. Richard's face remained impassive, but Sarah could see the calculation behind his eyes. He was losing half of everything he had spent 20 years building, plus ongoing financial obligations that would continue for decades. Additionally, Catherine continued, Mr. Mitchell has agreed to establish a trust fund for your child's education and future needs, with an initial funding of $2 million. James Sullivan spoke with the resignation of someone whose client had no negotiating leverage remaining. Our client has also agreed to a comprehensive non-disclosure agreement regarding the circumstances of the divorce, and he will not contest custody arrangements. Sarah would have primary custody of their child, with Richard receiving reasonable visitation rights that could be modified if his behavior became detrimental to the child's well-being. The settlement also included provisions for protecting Sarah and the baby from any attempts at manipulation or harassment. Richard, Sarah said, addressing her soon-to-be ex-husband directly for the first time that day, I want you to understand something. This is not about revenge or punishment. This is about justice and protection. You made choices that betrayed our marriage and threatened our child's security. These consequences reflect the natural result of those choices. Richard's response revealed the arrogance that had probably always existed beneath his charming exterior. You think you have won something? Sarah, I will rebuild everything within 5 years. You will be a single mother struggling to raise a child while I create a new life with someone who actually appreciates what I have to offer. The words stung, but they also confirmed everything Sarah had learned about Richard's character over the past month. He remained incapable of accepting responsibility for his behavior or demonstrating genuine remorse for the pain he had caused. Richard, Catherine Walsh interjected coldly, I would advise you to be more careful with your statements. This settlement is generous considering the evidence we possess regarding your financial and emotional abuse of your wife. After the agreements were signed and the attorneys had concluded their business, Sarah left the law office feeling lighter than she had in months. The legal battle was over, and she had emerged with both financial security and personal vindication. Melissa was waiting in the lobby to drive Sarah home, her face bright with excitement about the settlement results. Girl, you did not just win, Melissa said as they walked toward the parking garage. You completely rebuilt yourself from the ground up. Look at you. You are glowing with confidence and strength. Sarah thought about Melissa's words as they drove through Manhattan traffic. The woman who had discovered that hotel keycard 4 weeks ago had been naive and trusting, willing to make excuses for obvious warning signs. The woman sitting in this car today was someone entirely different, informed, empowered, and completely in control of her own destiny. I spent 23 years trying to be the perfect wife, Sarah reflected. Now I get to discover who I really am when I'm not performing for someone else's approval. What does that look like? Sarah considered the question carefully. It looks like raising this baby in a home built on honesty instead of lies. It looks like making decisions based on my own values instead of someone else's expectations. It looks like teaching my child that love requires respect, and respect requires truth. They drove to Sarah's new attorney-recommended obstetrician for what would likely be one of her final prenatal appointments before delivery. Dr. Rebecca Martinez had been Catherine Walsh's suggestion, a physician who specialized in high-risk pregnancies and understood the unique stresses faced by women going through divorce while preparing for childbirth. Sarah, Dr. Martinez said after reviewing her latest ultrasound, your baby is perfectly positioned and could arrive any day now. More importantly, your blood pressure has improved significantly over the past few weeks. Resolving the stress in your marriage seems to have benefited both you and the baby. I feel stronger than I have in months, Sarah admitted. Even though my life is completely changing, I feel more stable than I did when I was living with uncertainty and lies. That is very common. Women often report feeling relieved rather than devastated when they finally address abusive or deceptive relationships. Your body was responding to chronic stress even when your mind was trying to ignore the warning signs. After her appointment, Sarah returned to the Westchester house that would soon be legally hers alone. She walked through the rooms she had shared with Richard for 20 years, noting how different the space felt now that it represented freedom rather than imprisonment. The nursery remained exactly as they had prepared it together, but now it symbolized hope rather than naive optimism. The rocking chair Richard had found at the estate sale would rock Sarah's baby to sleep while she built a new life based on honesty and self-respect. Sarah's phone rang as she stood in the nursery doorway. Victoria Sterling's name appeared on the screen, a development that surprised her. Mrs. Mitchell, Victoria said hesitantly, I hope you do not mind me calling. I wanted you to know that I have ended all contact with Richard, and I am seeking therapy to understand how I became involved in such a destructive situation. Victoria, I appreciate you calling. How are you doing? Better than I expected. My therapist helped me realize that Richard's treatment of both of us was a pattern of narcissistic abuse rather than a simple affair. He manipulated us both by controlling information and creating false narratives about our situations. Sarah was impressed by Victoria's insight and personal growth. What have you learned about yourself through this experience? That I was vulnerable to manipulation because I had not developed strong boundaries around what I would accept from men. Richard recognized that vulnerability and exploited it. But I also learned that I am stronger than I thought and capable of making better choices in the future. Victoria, I want you to know that I do not blame you for what happened. Richard lied to both of us, and we were both victims of his selfishness and manipulation. Thank you for saying that. I know some women would hate me forever for my role in destroying their marriage. My marriage was destroyed by Richard's choices, not yours. You were led to believe that you were helping a man escape an unhappy situation, not creating one. After ending the call, Sarah reflected on the unexpected connection she had developed with Victoria. In different circumstances, they might have been friends rather than unwitting rivals for the same dishonest man. The next week brought a steady stream of visitors and supporters who had heard about Sarah's situation through their social network. Many of these women shared their own stories of betrayal and recovery, creating an informal support system that surprised Sarah with its warmth and wisdom. Margaret Henderson, the wife of Richard's former business partner, visited on a Thursday afternoon with homemade soup and valuable advice. Sarah, dear, my first husband left me for his secretary when my children were young. I thought my life was over, but it was actually just beginning. The woman I became after my divorce was so much stronger and more interesting than the woman I had been during my marriage. How long did it take you to feel normal again? About 2 years to feel stable, 5 years to feel grateful. But Sarah, you have advantages I never had. You have financial security, legal representation, and a support network that understands what you are going through. Most importantly, you have a baby coming who will give your life immediate purpose and meaning. These conversations with other women revealed a hidden community of divorce survivors who had not only endured betrayal, but thrived in its aftermath. Their stories gave Sarah hope that her current pain was temporary, while her future strength would be permanent. Sarah began planning her post-divorce life with the same attention to detail she had once applied to managing Richard's household. She researched preschools and pediatricians, investigated part-time work opportunities that would allow her to be present for her child while maintaining professional engagement, and explored volunteer opportunities that aligned with her values. Most unexpectedly, she began developing plans for a consulting business that would help other women navigate divorce proceedings and financial independence. Catherine Walsh had mentioned that many of her clients struggled with the practical aspects of rebuilding their lives after marriage, and Sarah realized she could provide valuable guidance based on her own experience. You could be the perfect bridge between legal representation and practical life management. Catherine had suggested during one of their final meetings, women trust other women who have survived similar experiences. The idea energized Sarah in ways she had not experienced for years. Instead of supporting Richard's ambitions, she would be building her own career, helping other women reclaim their lives from destructive relationships. On a sunny Friday afternoon, exactly 1 month after the hotel confrontation, Sarah received an unexpected phone call from Detective Martinez. Mrs. Mitchell, I wanted to update you on some recent developments regarding your former husband. He has been attempting to contact Miss Sterling despite her requests for no communication. She has filed a restraining order and asked me to document his harassment. Is Victoria safe? Yes, she has moved to a new apartment and changed her phone number. But this behavior suggests that Mr. Mitchell has not accepted the consequences of his choices and may continue trying to manipulate the women in his life. Sarah made a mental note to discuss this information with Catherine Walsh. If Richard was harassing Victoria despite their relationship being over, he might eventually direct similar behavior towards Sarah or their child. Detective Martinez, thank you for keeping me informed. If Richard's behavior escalates, please let me know immediately. Absolutely. Mrs. Mitchell, I have been doing this work for 20 years, and I want you to know that you handled this situation with exceptional courage and intelligence. Many women would have made different choices that protected them less effectively. As Sarah prepared for bed that evening, she reflected on the month that had transformed her life completely. The naive wife who had found a hotel keycard in her husband's papers had evolved into a confident woman who understood her own worth and refused to accept treatment that diminished her dignity. The baby kicked strongly as Sarah settled into bed, reminding her that the most important relationship of her life was still growing and developing. In a few weeks, she would hold her child and begin the adventure of single motherhood with financial security, legal protection, and a clear sense of her own strength. Richard had chosen his path when he decided to betray their marriage and build a relationship with another woman. Sarah had chosen her path when she decided to face the truth rather than live with comfortable lies. Both choices had consequences, But only Sarah's choice had led to justice, dignity, and hope for the future. 6 weeks later, Sarah held her daughter Emma in her arms while sunrise painted the hospital room walls with soft gold light. The labor had been swift and uncomplicated, as if Emma was eager to meet the world her mother had carefully prepared for her arrival. "She is perfect. Sarah," Melissa said, leaning over the hospital bed to admire the baby's tiny fingers and peaceful expression. "Look at those little hands. She is going to be strong like her mama." Emma weighed 7 pounds and 2 ounces, with dark hair that reminded Sarah of her own baby pictures and Richard's distinctive nose. Despite everything that had happened between her parents, Emma was a beautiful combination of their best features, unmarked by the adult conflicts that had shaped her earliest months in the womb. Dr. Martinez completed her final examination with professional satisfaction. "Perfect delivery, healthy baby, excellent recovery. You did beautifully. Sarah, your body was ready for this baby despite all the stress you have been managing." Sarah gazed at her daughter's face and felt a peace she had not experienced in months. This tiny person represented hope and possibility rather than disappointment and betrayal. Emma would grow up knowing that her mother had chosen courage over comfort, truth over convenience. "Has Richard been notified about the birth?" Melissa asked gently. "Catherine called his attorney this morning. Richard has the right to visit during designated hours, but he cannot stay overnight or make decisions about Emma's care." Sarah had mixed feelings about Richard's impending visit. Part of her wanted to protect Emma from any contact with a man who had proven himself selfish and manipulative. But another part recognized that Emma deserved the opportunity to know her father, even if that relationship would be limited and supervised. Richard arrived at the hospital that afternoon, carrying flowers and wearing an expression of nervous excitement that reminded Sarah of the man she had fallen in love with 24 years ago. He approached Emma's bassinet with genuine wonder, his face softening as he looked at his daughter for the first time. "She is beautiful, Sarah, absolutely perfect." "She is healthy and strong," Sarah replied, keeping her voice neutral but not hostile. "The doctors say she will probably be able to go home tomorrow." Richard asked permission before touching Emma's tiny hand, a courtesy that surprised Sarah. When Emma's fingers curled around his thumb, Richard's eyes filled with tears that seemed genuine rather than performative. "I know I have lost the right to be part of your life, Sarah, but I want to be a good father to Emma. I want to support her and be present for important moments in her life." Sarah studied Richard's face carefully, looking for signs of manipulation or false sentiment. Instead, she saw what appeared to be authentic emotion and genuine commitment to their daughter. "Richard, being a good father means being consistent, honest, and putting Emma's needs before your own convenience. It means paying support reliably, showing up when you promise to be there, and never using her as a weapon against me. I understand. I know I have made terrible mistakes, but I love this baby. I want to do better for her than I did for our marriage." Sarah hoped Richard's promises were sincere, but she would judge his commitment by his actions rather than his words. Emma deserved a father who was present and reliable, not someone who disappeared when parenting became inconvenient or difficult. Over the next few days, as Sarah adjusted to life as a new mother, she was surrounded by support from unexpected sources. Victoria Sterling sent a beautiful flower arrangement with a card that read, "Congratulations on your new beginning. Emma is lucky to have such a strong mother." Margaret Henderson and several other women from Sarah's social circle organized meal deliveries and household help, creating a network of practical support that made the transition to single motherhood much easier than Sarah had anticipated. Most surprisingly, Sarah's own mother called from Florida, where she had been living since Sarah's father's death 5 years earlier. "Sarah, honey, I heard about your situation through Margaret. I am proud of you for having the courage to leave a marriage that was not serving you or your baby. I thought you would be disappointed that I could not make my marriage work. Sweetheart, I stayed married to your father for 35 years, despite his drinking and affairs, because I thought divorce was failure. But watching you choose truth over comfort makes me realize that sometimes leaving is the greatest success of all." The conversation with her mother provided healing that Sarah had not expected. For years, she had tried to be the perfect wife, partly to prove to her mother that marriage could be different from the chaos of her childhood home. Learning that her mother respected her choice to prioritize dignity over social expectations was liberating in ways Sarah was still processing. 2 weeks after Emma's birth, Sarah returned to the Westchester house that was now legally hers alone. She walked through the rooms while carrying Emma, mentally redesigning the space to reflect their new life together. Richard's office would become a playroom. The formal dining room would be converted into a home office where Sarah could develop her consulting business. The master bedroom would be redecorated in colors that Sarah loved, rather than the neutral tones Richard had preferred. Most importantly, the house would be filled with honesty and openness rather than secrets and manipulation. Emma would grow up in a home where difficult conversations were handled with respect rather than deception, where problems were addressed directly rather than ignored or hidden. Sarah's phone rang while she was nursing Emma in the nursery rocking chair. Catherine Walsh's name appeared on the screen. "Sarah, I have some interesting news. Richard's business partner contacted my office yesterday. Apparently, Richard's behavior over the past few months has damaged several important client relationships, and the partnership is being dissolved. What does that mean for Emma's support payments? Richard will still be able to meet his obligations, but his earning potential has been significantly reduced by the consequences of his personal choices. His reputation in Manhattan real estate circles has been severely damaged." Sarah felt no satisfaction at Richard's professional difficulties. His problems were the natural result of his own decisions, not something she had caused or desired. But she was relieved to know that his reduced circumstances would not affect Emma's financial security. "Catherine, I want to ask you about something else. I am thinking about starting a consulting business to help women navigate divorce and rebuild their lives afterward. Do you think there would be demand for those services?" "Sarah, that is a brilliant idea. I have clients every week who struggle with the practical aspects of life after divorce. Legal representation handles the financial and custody issues, but women still need guidance about rebuilding their daily routines, managing their emotions, and creating new identities outside of marriage. Would you be willing to refer clients to me once I get established?" "Absolutely. Sarah, you have turned your own painful experience into wisdom that could help hundreds of other women. That is the kind of transformation that creates lasting positive impact." As Sarah planned her business, she realized that Richard's betrayal had inadvertently given her something valuable: the motivation and credibility to help other women escape destructive relationships. Her experience with narcissistic abuse, financial manipulation, and public humiliation had taught her lessons that could benefit women facing similar challenges. 3 months after Emma's birth, Sarah spoke at a women's support group that met monthly at a community center in White Plains. She held Emma while addressing 20 women whose ages ranged from their 20s to their 60s, all of whom were navigating the aftermath of betrayal or divorce. "Ladies," Sarah began, "6 months ago, I thought my story ended when my marriage did. I was wrong. It was just the intermission. The second act is entirely up to us." She talked about the importance of trusting instincts, gathering evidence, and seeking professional help rather than trying to manage crisis situations alone. She discussed the value of building support networks with other women who understood the challenges of starting over after betrayal. Most importantly, she shared her realization that every woman has a moment when she chooses between the life she planned and the life that is calling her. The brave ones answer that call, even when the future is uncertain and frightening. "I plan to be married to Richard forever," Sarah concluded. "I plan to raise our children in a stable two-parent home built on love and trust. When I discovered that my plans were based on lies, I had to choose between continuing to live someone else's fiction or creating my own reality based on truth." After her presentation, several women approached Sarah with questions about her consulting services and requests for individual guidance. Within 2 weeks, she had 3 paying clients and a waiting list of women who wanted to work with her. Sarah's business grew organically through word-of-mouth referrals and recommendations from attorneys like Catherine Walsh. She specialized in helping women develop practical strategies for emotional recovery, financial independence, and co-parenting with difficult ex-husbands. Her own experience with Richard's manipulation tactics made her particularly effective at helping clients recognize and respond to narcissistic abuse patterns. She could identify red flags that other consultants might miss and provide strategies that were based on real-world experience rather than theoretical knowledge. 6 months after Emma's birth, Sarah sat in the same kitchen where her journey had begun, but everything had changed fundamentally. Baby Emma slept peacefully in her arms while Sarah reviewed emails from potential clients and planned her growing business. The woman who had discovered a hotel keycard in her husband's briefcase had evolved into someone completely different, confident, independent, and genuinely happy with the life she was building for herself and her daughter. Sarah's phone buzzed with a text from Melissa. "Coffee tomorrow. Want to hear about your latest client success stories?" Sarah typed back with one hand while supporting Emma with the other. "Yes, but my treat. Business is booming thanks to your referrals." As she prepared for bed that evening, Sarah reflected on the transformation that had occurred over the past year. Richard had unintentionally given her the greatest gift possible, the motivation to discover who she really was when she stopped trying to be what someone else needed. Emma stirred in her bassinet, making the soft sounds that preceded her nighttime feeding. Sarah lifted her daughter and settled into the rocking chair that had witnessed so many quiet moments of bonding and reflection. "Emma," Sarah whispered, "your father thought he was destroying our family when he chose to betray our marriage. Instead, he gave us the opportunity to build something better. You will grow up knowing that your mother chose truth over comfort, courage over convenience." Sarah thought about the promises she had made on the night she discovered Richard's text messages. She had promised to protect Emma from the consequences of adult betrayal and selfishness. She had kept that promise by refusing to accept treatment that diminished her dignity or threatened her daughter's security. 24 years ago, she had promised to love, honor, and cherish. She had learned to direct those promises to the right person, herself and the child who depended on her strength and wisdom. Outside the nursery windows, rain fell gently against the glass, but this time it sounded like applause rather than storm warnings. Sarah hummed the same lullaby her mother had sung to her decades earlier, creating a bridge between generations of women who had learned to choose themselves when others failed to choose them. Emma's breathing settled into the peaceful rhythm of deep sleep as Sarah's own contentment filled the quiet room. The sound faded to Sarah's satisfied sigh, then silence, marking the completion of one chapter and the beginning of countless others still to be written. The future stretched ahead with possibilities that Richard's betrayal had made possible rather than destroyed. Sarah had learned that endings could become beginnings, that betrayal could become liberation, and that the life calling her was infinitely better than the life she had planned.